Welcome to the Investor Coaching Show, a podcast to help you get an insider's view of the financial world and escape common investment traps. We look at the financial news of the day and help you make sense of it so you can relax about money. And here's your host, Paul Winkler.
All right, we're back here on the Investor Coaching Show. Paul Winkler, Evan Barnard. So, Evan, common questions that younger people are asking now?
Yes.
What you said you had seen something, and it was one of my topics that I thought I would talk about.
Yeah. So I was on ChatGPT.
Okay.
And I said, hey, what are the top 10 financial questions people are asking? Just like, hey, that'd be an interesting thing to talk about on the show. Well, anyway.
We're on the same wavelength again.
And so, and then I said, we'll break it down by age.
Oh.
You know, what questions are people asking at particular age groups?
Yeah.
And in the age band of 26 to 35, the characterization was that's people establishing their career and making major life decisions. The core theme, planning for big goals.
Okay.
And should I pay down debt or invest first was one of the questions.
Okay.
How much do I need to save for a home down payment? Because many people in this stage are buying their first home.
And check out the data on this. This is fascinating. Listen to this.
The other data point, guys, that I wanted to bring up, this is really crazy. So we got some data from the National Association of Realtors on housing. We've been talking about here on this show for a while. Diana Olick has been talking about how difficult it is out there to buy a home, the affordability challenges, the mortgage rates. Did you guys see this? The median age of first-time home buyer, 40 years old.
40 years old.
Yeah.
How old were you when you bought your first home, Evan?
Oh, gosh. 22.
22?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, 22.
You win.
Well,
I was still in college.
I was young and stupid, so, you know.
You were young and stupid.
We'll start there.
Well, that's pretty good. You bought your first home. I mean, wow, you know, 22.
I was a single lieutenant in the Marine Corps. I'd been stationed, to Hawaii. Is where
Did you go straight from high school to the Marines?
Well, I had to wait because I graduated when I was 16. But yeah,
I graduated when you were 16?
I enlisted still when I was 16.
Little.
Yeah.
Oh
so I was in boot camp when I was 17. I had to wait a few months. But yeah, I went right into the service, enlisted, and then while I was in boot camp, funny story, I get a letter from the commandant of the Marine Corps.
Yeah.
Addressed to Lawrence Barnard.
Uh-huh.
And of course, the senior drill instructor is like, Private Barnard, get in here. I'm like, uh-oh, that's never a good sign.
What'd I do?
He says, open this letter. I'm opening this. And I said, it says I've been accepted for a scholarship. And he's like, get out of here, you office pogue, or, officer scum, whatever I'm going to be.
That's hilarious.
But anyway, yeah, my first duty station was Hawaii, and I bought a house when I moved there.
No kid. Okay, so yes. So first time, I was in my mid-20s. You're 22. I was in my mid-20s. Average age 40.
Yeah, Jordan bought his first house just to kind of continue with the family thing. I think he was 27.
Okay.
And just Navy son just bought their first house.
Yeah.
He'd been moving around a bunch.
Right.
And he is 30 or 31.
Well, that is not the usual.
Yeah.
A lot of people are really struggling with regards to this. So age 40 is the first time home purchase. That's the data on that. But they give more data here.
And that's like a shocking number. That's a record high. And by the way, in 2021, that number was 33 years old. It's a big jump in just a few years. Wow. Back when they started tracking the data in 1981, maybe when you bought your first home, David, the median age was 29 years old. I mean, it's a huge problem. And when you look at things like the elections and the inequality in this country, this is another way to look at it. It's harder. It's student debt. It's, housing prices going up. And then as a result, you get these lost decades where people aren't building equity in their homes because they don't own homes. Repeat buyers, median age, 59 years old.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, 50. That's the that's
second
the repeat
home.
That's the repeat buyer. Yeah, 59 years old. Now, She says it's inequality and all that stuff. Yeah, I think there's a whole lot more to it than that. There is this desire. Yeah. There's a change in attitude when it comes to owning a home. A lot of people don't want to be tied. You hear some people that I just don't want to be tied. They don't want to buy anything. I don't want to get anything. Some people do, but there are a lot of people that just don't want anything. They don't want to move into that particular territory. And I've talked about it here before. I actually had that little thing with one of the guys that used to work here. Decided he didn't want to be a financial planner because he didn't like people. It was kind of funny.
That'd be a big hurdle.
Yeah, it was a huge hurdle. It was an issue. And it was so funny when he walked in one day, I just can't do this anymore. I don't like people. And they wear me out. And I laughed and I said, okay, you probably don't need to be here. But he and I went through this exercise on whether you should own home or whether you should rent. And we went through the numbers. We went through when you're looking at the interest that you pay on a home. And the interest rates were pretty much like what they are right now. You take for every $100,000, you're looking at somewhere in the neighborhood of about $6,500 in interest. You take a couple $100,000, $300,000, $400,000. That adds up. Where you have over $26,000 of interest based on the number that I just said. In just interest on your mortgage. And you look at that and say, wow, that's money that goes out the door. Because people say, I don't want to waste money on rent. And I say, well, you're wasting money on interest when it comes down to your mortgage. So you're not necessarily getting away scot-free. And then you also have the difference between your homeowner's insurance versus renter's insurance. You also have the upkeep of the home. The expenses for upkeep. You also have taxes. That money goes out the door and doesn't come back. It's like, one of the politicians was recently talking a little bit about the idea that if you don't pay your taxes, you're literally leasing your home. You're literally leasing your property from the government because you don't pay your taxes. And guess what? It's gone. So the idea is that you ever are debt free when it comes down to your home. I always say, well, not exactly. Really gets down to it. You don't ever get completely debt free regarding that. But one of the things that people do, and then one of the things that we came to the conclusion of is this planner and I, he says, well, why would I buy a home? And I says, well, pride of ownership. When you decide that you are actually where you want to be, there can be that. I have complete control over the property. I live where I want to live. I can improve the property. It's kind of like what my wife and I did when we first bought our very first home. We left the basement unfinished. And then what we did is we literally built out the top 2 floors, and the basement we left unfinished, and I finished that myself, and that increased the value of the property pretty significantly because it added a lot of square footage into the house. There are things that you can do outside the house to make it more valuable. There are things that you can do when you buy a house and you decide if you're handy at all to fix it up to you can increase the value of the house. So there are a lot of reasons to own a home. You don't necessarily throw the baby out with the bathwater when it comes down to it. But a lot of people are choosing not to do that. But some people are choosing to buy a home. And, they want to know, what do I do? And, there was this little video that I saw out there on YouTube where this guy was walking through the stages and the steps. But I thought we'd talk a little bit about this. So just check this out, what he has to say about the stages and the steps.
If you're a first-time home buyer, the process of buying a home can be a little scary, so I want to give you the 8 steps so you know what to look forward to. Number 1 is you want to get your financial ducks in a row. So talk with the lender and find a payment that you're comfortable with on a monthly basis. Number 2 is the fun part. You get to go on the home search with your agent. Number 3 is submitting an offer. This is where your agent will submit the paperwork to the seller with your offer. Number 4, if they accept your offer, you go under contract. This is typically a 30-day due diligence period to dot some I's and cross some T's. Number 5 is the earnest money deposit. You've got 72 hours to wire about a 1 to 3% of the purchase price to a title company. This goes towards your home. It's not in addition to. Number 6 is the inspection period. Make sure to get an inspection contingency. This is very important. It's going to cost you $300 to $600, but an inspector's going to go look under the hood to make sure that you're not buying a lemon. Number 7 is the appraisal. If you're getting a mortgage, they're not going to give you $500K without having an appraiser check to make sure it's $500K. And then number 8 is closing day. This is where it becomes your house and you get the keys. If you're a first-time home buyer,
that's it right there. So you look at that, and a lot of people, they're buying homes without appraisals and things like that, and without any kind of or not appraisals, without having any kind of an inspection on the house. Yeah. A few years ago, people got really, really fired up about buying, and that's really what drove prices up so high, is that you couldn't even literally you would lose the contract if you waited.
No contingency, add $100,000 to the sale price.
Yeah. So, when it comes down to the first-time home buyer, you can get in for less than. You don't have to put down the 20% that we often talk about with buying a home, but the problem that you run into is you have mortgage insurance costs.
Right.
That you actually have a mortgage insurance protection. You've got an additional expense with buying a home. And that is something that's ongoing until you get to that 20% level. And then you can actually go and get that removed. But do you ever pay that type of coverage on yours, Evan?
At one point I did, yeah.
Did you?
Yeah.
Because it was literally for every house that I'd ever bought. I never had that because we actually, the very first house we had, we were able to actually assume somebody else's mortgage.
Yeah, that's a blast from the past.
That was a blast from the past. Yeah, that was something that, they're still around from what I understand. I don't ever see them. Haven't seen in years. Somebody had told me that
they
they're
may
still
come
around.
back. I could see the market trying to respond to the interest rate deal. But
so
I was on a VA loan for the first time.
So what are some creative ideas that you have for people getting into houses?
Oh, gosh.
Because I can throw one of mine out. I've seen people that have parents or they have relatives that have CDs that are, at 4%, they're renewing at a much lower interest.
Yeah.
Right. They're not getting as much on that. So, you can actually borrow the down payment from a relative, and I tell people have a contract with that person.
Yes. Charge interest. Yeah. Have an agreement. Yeah.
Have them charge interest, have an agreement, borrow that. And then, if people are only making a couple % on their money in a savings account, because, that's, I'm not a big fan of having too much money in savings, but there are people, you're just not going to talk them off that ledge. They're going to keep their money in a savings account, but you could actually pay them a little bit higher interest rate, borrow that money for the down payment, and then now you have that 20% down payment, and you've saved a significant amount of money on the mortgage insurance protection on the program. I
think, to me, another aspect of this home ownership squeeze is cultural from an expectation standpoint. And, houses from the 50s to the 60s to the 70s weren't all that different. As my dad was a dentist, and we'd move from, one neighborhood to another neighborhood, and, this house was a little nicer, but houses were still kind of similar.
Yeah.
In the last 30 years, we have whole neighborhoods of McMansions and stuff. And so if you have somebody that's been living in a 9,000 square foot home,
right,
and they've graduated from college, even if they have no college debt, let's just, they got a scholarship or something, and they're looking for a house that's even similar to what, and they're like, well, I can't pay $3 million for a house.
Right.
So
I think that's a really good point.
They're not looking for 900 square feet and a bathroom.
Yeah, well,
it's just a different
and that's true.
world.
That is so true, Evan. Our first house was probably 1,200 square feet. That was it.
Yeah.
And it was, we loved it. It was great. It was home. It was really great to have something we could call our own. But now the average house from the 1970s till now is at least 1,000 square foot larger.
Yeah.
And, so that people are living in much larger houses, and they have, and I was looking around at the internet. I went and did a little search. I said, okay, let me find all the houses between $200,000 and $300,000.
Oh,
And it was interesting. It was an interesting little search that I had done. One was more like a mobile home.
Yeah.
Is what I saw, the first thing. Most of them were townhomes that came in at that particular level in the Nashville area. So I looked at that and I said, well, yeah, okay, that's about what somebody can afford the first time. A lot of people could, but they were cute little places.
Right.
I thought they were neat little places. And for the person that's getting out for the first time, wants to have their own little place, that's not, I don't see a negative of that.
And it's doable.
Sure it is.
As opposed to not doable.
Yeah. and I think that it is something that, where a lot of people, what do? Do you save first How much do you save?
Yeah.
And we ought to take a break and then come back and talk a little bit more about that. I think that'd be interesting to hear your perspective regarding that. How much do you put down? How much do you save?
Yep.
We talked about the 20% goal right there. What kind of place do you get? What do you recommend to your younger clients? What do you recommend to your kids? I'd be real curious to hear that. Hey, just a note to you podcast folks, we just came out with a retirement income guide, and I'm super excited about this. There are all kinds of myths about taking income in retirement. People worry about running out of money, and rightfully so, because a lot of these myths can actually cause that. Now, the myths that you typically hear about, number one, dividends, living off dividends in retirement. Real estate, life insurance as in a retirement investment, and annuities, and interest-bearing accounts, and target date funds, all kinds of things out there. What I want to do is put something together that walks through why those things are problematic, number one. Number two, the other thing that I wanted to do is walk through the evidence-based research on taking income in retirement. And we got a ton of data going all the way back to 1900. What's the logic behind it? And it's intensely logical. So we put that together, and all you have to do to download that, making it super simple, just go to paulwinkler.com/relax, and you can actually get into that very easily right there. So I would urge you to do that. Check it out, because I think you're going to really like it. paulwinkler.com/relax. Your first home. That's crazy what it's worth now.
Yeah, I was Googling when you were going through those steps. It is now, so if I'd hung on to it, this will be another number crunch. It's $1,716,000 is what Zillow has it on.
It's hilarious.
I didn't pay that much back in 1986.
Well,
but.
I am a. You don't want financial advice? No, I wasn't a financial advisor back then. You know what our house is worth? I just looked up our first place that we lived in. Yeah. You could still buy. You could buy it for $257.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I'm telling you, we did that. We lived lean. I will never forget getting over to and taking a class, and there was two young ladies in this class. Mm-hmm. And they said that I had white male privilege. And I laughed and I said, well, let me tell you a little bit about my background. The first place I lived in Nashville, cockroaches crawling all over me. And,
right.
and it was not a pretty sight, back in my 20s. It was not any kind of privilege whatsoever. And then, going and studying for first designation, getting my first one, my second one, my third one, my fourth one, my fifth one, my sixth one, seventh one, thinking that all of these designations, these little financial degrees, that somehow it would get me out of this mess that I was in. And I learned a lot. I mean, it was really, really good. But it was lean. Let me just put it that way. And, I was just looking at the numbers on that and going, wow, that is amazing to me what that house still can be bought for.
Yeah.
I thought that was super, super interesting. Now, if you take that and you say, well, what do you have to put down on a house?
Right.
About 3.5%. So let's say $10,000 on this particular house. Okay, and let's say that the interest rates, it's not quite 6.5%, but you have the interest rates are just a little bit lower than that right now on a 30-year mortgage, somewhere in that neighborhood. And you say, well, what would be the payment on something like that? And the payment would be about $1,561.
Yeah.
And I thought, a lot of people are paying a whole lot more than that in rent.
Yeah, I'd crunch some numbers because when we went to break, you'd mentioned something about $300,000. You were looking at that search of $300,000.
Yeah, you're right.
So if you put 5% down on a $300,000 home, so that's $15,000 down, loan of $285, 6%, that's still only $1,709. And people are paying $2,000 for rent for a single bedroom apartment.
And I think just the point being is that so many people they're worried, they're scared, they're talking about the markets aren't what they used to be. And I think that your expectations really have to be more in line with what's realistic. And a lot of times people don't look at first-time home purchase like we did, my wife and I.
Yeah.
It was just whatever.
It got me off the street.
That's what I was looking at. It got me off the street. And I was happy to be someplace, happy to be here, happy to be anywhere. And, reality is you got to start somewhere. Hey, this is Paul Winkler. Hope you enjoyed today's edition of the Investor Coaching Show. If you want to learn more about what we do, go to our website, paulwinkler.com. Until next time, I'm Paul Winkler, reminding you that I believe that more educated investors are more confident investors, and confident investors are more successful investors. Have a great one. Advisory services offered through Paul Winkler, Inc., an SEC-registered investment advisor. The opinions voiced and information provided in this material are for general informational purposes only and not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. To determine what investments are appropriate for you, please consult with a financial advisor. Paul Winkler, Inc. does not provide tax or legal advice. Please consult your tax or legal advisor regarding your particular situation.